before my time here, I actually worked in human resources and corporate America for about 15 years. So I've done a lot of interviews, a lot of hiring, and I'm going to share some of that knowledge with you today, hopefully to help you. And Ms. Renae Maurer was kind enough to join us today, and she and I worked together for quite a number of years. So if you want to introduce yourself.
Sure. So I'm Renae Maurer. I am actually a talent acquisition operations consultant within HR. And like Marcela said, we worked together for quite a few years in the HR recruiting department with Black & Decker. So that's been a great deal of fun and learning experience. I've actually been in the recruiting industry for about 20 years now. I started out as a recruiter, doing phone screens, searching for candidates, doing part-time weekend work for a marketing firm, and then ended up being more in a operations role, managing talent acquisition programs. And I did that for about 8 years, and then found myself into a consulting company now, where I help companies and businesses develop their recruiting processes, define their interview process, implement systems, talent acquisition systems, and all kinds of great stuff. So I'm here also to kind of share with you what we've learned over the years and hopefully help you improve your interview process.
And part of our goal today is to give you a look behind the scenes of what happens in HR, right? You submit your application, what happens, what goes on. We did that for a long time. So we're going to share part of that with you. Like Renae mentioned, we worked together at Black & Decker for a while. We've both also had experience with other companies. So we'll bring some of that to you today. So we would like to first start off with a little game. And everyone needs to vote. Everyone needs to vote, so get ready to raise your hand. And if you're not sure which way to vote, just take your best guess. You have a 50-50 shot, right? Pretty good odds. So we want to get your opinion on if you think these statements are myths or realities. The candidate with the best education, skills, and experience will get the job. Okay, so we're going to think about it for a second, and then we're going to vote. So who thinks this statement is reality? You have to vote. So, okay, a few people. All right, good. Maybe about half. And who thinks that this is a myth? All right. I'd say a little bit more myth. People voted for myth than reality. So this is actually a myth. Does anyone know why this is a myth? Yes?
Isn't it because like they look at your experience and stuff like that as well?
They look at what?
Your experience.
Your experience. Okay, yeah, your experience is up here. Yes?
I mean, if I were interviewing someone, I mean, most people ask, like, why should we hire you? So I guess it's all a matter of how you present yourself to whoever's hiring you, you know?
Okay, good. How you present yourself. Absolutely.
Sometimes, like, I know we will rather have somebody that doesn't have any skills because they know that they can kind of train them and maneuver them the way they want them to, and they like young, innovative people.
Okay, good. So sometimes maybe skills isn't even a big part. Companies want someone that's more trainable. So absolutely right. So in addition to education, skills, and experience, companies are looking for culture and fit. Culture and fit. So if you think about it, if it was just education and skills and experience, they would just look at your resume or your application and be able to tell, right? But they don't do that. They interview you. They want to see you typically in person. So being a fit for the company, fitting into their culture, becomes an important part.
Your time preparing for an interview is one of the most important keys to being successful. Myth or reality? Think about it. Okay. How many think it's a reality? How many think it's a myth? Okay. Saw a lot more myths on that one than realities. Or wait, I said realities.
Yeah.
A lot more realities than myths. It is a reality. So why do you think that's a reality?
When you go to an interview, you must know about the company because those are the points that you're going to present. I mean, you have to be prepared with any questions that you might, they might ask you about the business.
Exactly. Exactly. Any other thoughts? Why do you think that's a reality? All right. So basically, the more time you put into preparing for an interview, the better off you are going to present yourself to the interviewer. Interviewers aren't going to expect you to be 100%. They're not going to expect you to know every answer to every question, but they do want to know that you put time into preparing for them. Okay, so that will come through. I will tell you that if you come in and you don't know anything about the company, don't know about like the business, I mean, I have to say, working at Black & Decker, I can't tell you how many times we worked for a different division other than power tools, and people came in, they're like, I can't wait to get working with power tools. Like, yeah, we don't sell power tools here. You're not gonna be manufacturing, marketing power tools. You're gonna be manufacturing locks and faucets or whatever brand they were actually applying for. So know what you're interviewing for. Big, 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 important deal.
If during my interview I'm asked if I have any weaknesses, I should say that I have none. You should say that you have none if you're asked about weaknesses. So who thinks that that's a reality? Reality. A couple of people, okay, and who thinks that that's a myth? All right, so I have not yet met a perfect person, right? I'm not perfect. I'm probably guessing most of you are not perfect. So we all have weaknesses. We all have strengths and we all have weaknesses. So you do want to ask this question. It's a common interview question. So per our last statement, you will want to prepare for it. You want to be wise in how you answer it. So you don't want to say, well, I'm always late. Probably not the best answer, right? You want to identify a weakness and then how you're working on it. So for example, you could say, I tend to take on too much. I tend to take on too many projects. And then you could say, to help with that, I use a project management app so I could keep track of my time every day and make sure that I meet my commitments. You always want to follow it through with what you're doing to work on it. Very important. If you look at your blue handout here on the bottom, we included some common interview questions, especially for your first professional interview, and that's one of the ones that I put on here with a few, that we put on here with a few examples. So you have that as reference as well. All right.
If I'm asked an illegal question during my interview, I should let the interviewer know that it's illegal and refuse to answer. Think about that for 1 second. Okay? How many people think that is a myth? How much is reality? Okay, so let's think about that for a second. It's kind of a tricky question, right? So, anyone know what the illegal questions might be? Yes.
They ask you like a question about your race.
Yep.
Then you can refuse to like, not answer, but it would have not bad. But I mean, like,
Right.
I would answer. I would just answer the question.
Okay. Yes.
If they ask a woman, do you plan on becoming pregnant soon?
Oh, yeah, definitely. That's an illegal question. We don't want to ask that. Don't want to answer it either. Okay, so yeah, an illegal question is basically anything that can be considered discrimination, right? So age, sex, gender, religion, ethnicity, anything that could be considered discriminatory.
Family status
Family
is a common
status.
one.
Family status is actually a big one. A lot of the times managers aren't necessarily realizing that they're asking illegal questions because really they just want to know, are you going to be available? Are you going to be here? Can you do the job? What they need to realize is there's other ways to present that question. Yes?
I have a question. Since they're a legal question, why are they on the application? Like your sex and your race?
So those are not displayed to the interviewers. It's actual confidential information that's hidden behind the scenes for affirmative action plans and EEOs, equal employment opportunities.
And as I think a lot of that is voluntary,
And
right?
it is voluntary,
Yeah.
yes. So you can always choose on those applications that I choose not to disclose. So you don't have to answer those at that time.
Yeah, so that's a good point.
That is
Sometimes
good.
when you're applying online, it'll say, can you reveal your gender, your ethnicity, your veteran status? But you can, I think you can always say no, or
Yes.
you can submit it. Typically, it goes into an HR database, which I think then is reported to the government.
Yes.
For statistics.
Yes, it is. So back to the question though. So if a manager or an interviewer, recruiter asks you any of those questions, the best way to go around it is to either, you can ask them to rephrase the question, right? And ask them, what is the purpose of the question? And answer the purpose of it. So for example, if someone is asking you about your ethnicity, or where did you come from, where were you born and raised, perhaps their reason for that is to find out, you know what, we have a plant in Asia, in China. You're going to be doing a lot of work with them. Are you going to be able to communicate? Are you going to be able to interact with them? Are you going to be able to socialize with them? Are you going to be able to go out there and visit with them and be able to do the job? Well, you can answer that question without saying where you're born, where you're raised, what ethnicity you are. It's simply, yes, I speak Mandarin, Chinese, and English. Yes, I've traveled to China before, or I've done business there, or I can communicate and work well with that environment.
Yeah.
Right, same thing with children. They don't need to know that you have children, they just maybe need to know, are you committed to the job? Can you travel? Can you work overtime if needed, late? You don't need to answer whether or not you have children or you plan to have kids.
Yeah, and a lot of times, I mean, we even saw this at Black & Decker where our managers, were fully trained, or other companies where managers are trained in interview questions. Sometimes they do this on accident. Like they'll say, oh, I noticed you may have a large family and this requires a lot of, work at night. Is that okay? Answer the purpose of the question. You don't have to answer the family part. You can say, yes, I can work at evenings and weekends. Whatever is true for you, answer that part of the question. I wouldn't necessarily recommend saying, hey, that's illegal and I'm going to report you, unless it's really egregious. So you have to balance it. Like Renae said, this is a little bit of a tricky one. And, it also depends on where the interviewer, how they're phrasing it, what their intention is. So try to answer the purpose of the question, if at all possible. So here is kind of an agenda of what we'll go through today, now that we've looked at some myths and realities. We'll talk about some resume tips, so some pointers that we have for you as you're putting together your resume document. We'll talk about job search, so what are some ideas on job search? Then we'll move on to interview tips, and then we'll talk about, but before then we'll talk about recruiters. Renae has a wealth of experience with recruiters, which most of you will interact with as you're looking for a job. Then we'll talk about interview tips, and then we've left about 15 minutes at the end for some question and answer. So please keep thinking of questions, and we'll address those. We'll have time at the end.
Okay, 2 minutes. There's a 2-minute rule as it comes to, or it relates to resumes. What do you think that 2-minute rule is? Anyone? Yes.
If it takes longer than 2 minutes to read, the interviewer will get involved.
Correct, yes. If it takes longer than 2 minutes to read, the interviewer or recruiter will not actually read your resume. So it's actually stated in a survey done by Career Builder that 1 in 6 managers or recruiters will spend 30 seconds or less on a resume. 30 seconds. Right? And that means that on average, actually reviewing those resumes, about 68% will spend less than 2 minutes. Okay, so think about that for a second. You've basically got 2 minutes, really 30 seconds, to grab someone's attention. Okay, and to put it in perspective, in all fairness to a recruiter, you come into your job and you're ready to sit down and review resumes. You can open your inbox or go to the tool applicant tracking system that we collect our resumes in, and they can have anywhere from 20 resumes to 100 resumes. You need to figure out how to stand out, right? So what we're going to talk about next is kind of some of those key points that will help you out.
And, I think especially for first jobs out of college, I know some of the jobs that we worked with at Black & Decker, like in sales or other areas, where really the requirement was just a college degree, there were some jobs where we would have hundreds of applicants. I mean, I remember like 200, 250.
Yep.
So you also have to put yourself in that hiring manager's or that recruiter's shoes. If they have 250 resumes to look at, even if they give each resume 1 minute, that's hours and hours of work. So they move pretty fast. So just remember that as you're preparing, this beautiful resume, it has to be able to communicate quickly.
Yes. All right, so the first thing is your contact information. It should be clear on your resume, right? And when we talk about contact information, just kind of a change that I've seen over the years, a lot of people are not necessarily including their street address on the actual resume. It's not necessary, but you do need to include your city and state. Include a phone number, area code as well, right? Whether it's a cell phone, home number, whatever the case may be, make sure it's the best phone number to reach you on. And then your email address, right? We want to make sure that your email address is correct on your resume. Very, very, very important. There has been several times where we've tried to reach out to a candidate and nothing comes through, only to find out later that they had the wrong, email address on, or they changed their email address. Maybe their email address was like blocking things, but a lot of times it was just like a typo. So make sure that your email address is correct on your resume. It might be right when you enter it into the system, but if we print out a resume and then looking at it that way, hiring manager or the recruiter might try and send you an email based off of that rather than through the system. Your keywords in your job description, okay, but don't go overboard. So what does that mean? Right, we want to take a look at your job descriptions as you are actually looking at positions. Try to highlight and find what are they asking for, what are the requirements in that position. Make sure those keywords are in your resume somewhere, right? That is what a recruiter is going to do. They're going to take a look at your resume and they're skimming really quick for keywords. And if you don't have some of those basic keywords, you're going to get bypassed. Okay, so they might not be real specific with specific systems, but if it's project management and you've done some kind of project work, put project management in there. You know, if it's presentations, they are looking for someone with great communication skills, put presentations in there. Think about all of your coursework that you've done, all the different projects, internships, any kind of job you've done, any kind of sports or extracurricular activities that you've done that show leadership, communication, teamwork, anything like that, that can apply to the job that you're applying for and make it relevant, okay?
And one quick comment on that, a lot of the HR systems that I've seen that review resumes are starting to do that within their system. So a lot of times we'll see percentages, like this resume is an 88% match, this resume is a 72% match, and part of that can be looking for keywords. Did the person have the word team in their resume? Did the person have the word Excel in their resume? Did the person have the word manage in their resume? Whatever those keywords are for that job description that you're applying for, the system will automatically do that. And normally for those lower resumes that are only a 10% match or a 20% match, the recruiter or the hiring manager may not even look at that resume. It just may not be strong enough. And maybe you're strong enough, but you forgot to put some of those keywords. So given the whole new way of looking at resumes, it's very important to have those keywords. When it says, you know, the other thing with not going overboard, you don't want to copy exactly the job description. You know,
Right.
Make sure you use your own words, but you do want to have the keywords in there.
Right. Active verbs. Give me some active verbs. Anyone? Managing, running, planning, executing, yes.
Good.
Yes. All of those are very important. You want to show what you've accomplished, what you're doing, right? And that's what a lot of managers, hiring managers, recruiters are looking for. They want to see, how are you going to fit into this organization, into this team, into this role? What have you done and what can you bring to the table? So think about what you've done in the past and use those active and action verbs, okay? Consistent formatting. So formatting is actually really important when it comes to your resume. There's a couple of things we'll look at on that, but when you are actually writing out your resume, you want to make sure that you are starting with your most recent employment and work your way down. Don't start with your first job and then work your way to your most recent. Always highlight your most recent and current job at the top. When you're doing that, also make sure that you pick a style and be consistent across the board. So list your job title, and then over to the right-hand side, put your date. How long were you there? If you're still there, put current, present, whatever. But when you're doing your dates, make sure your dates for every job is actually consistent. So if you're going to put December 1999 to present, 99, or December 2012, make sure that December, are you going to write out December? Are you going to do DEC, abbreviated, or are you going to do 2012? Right, so whatever that format is, do it the same for every job or every date that you're putting in that column, okay? Make sure you put the company name and then list, if you're listing your job requirements and duties that you've accomplished, keep that consistent also for every job. Is it bullet points? Is it abbreviated? Is it full sentence? Whatever it is, make sure it's consistent across the board. Don't have some bullets, some paragraphs, something else. Okay, it needs to look clean and concise.
And I have a question for you. Why do you think consistent formatting is important? Why does it really matter? Why are we even talking about it? How about this side of the room? You guys have been a little quiet. Yes?
Because people want to know, or the
That you what?
that you are detail oriented.
Okay, the person
Yes.
hiring wants to know that you're detail-oriented,
Yes.
good. And yes,
If it's not consistent and that takes more time away from the 2 minutes that the interviewer has to read.
Exactly.
okay, good. Thank you.
Yes.
Takes time away from the interviewer to follow. So absolutely right. So two main things. One, consistent formatting will make it easier on the reader. Always make it easy on the reader. You don't want to make them have to search. The second thing, and I hear this a lot, is, wow, if they didn't even take time to format their resume right and put some work into it, how are they going to do on this job?
Exactly.
If you can't even invest in your resume and yourself, are you going to care about this job? Are you going to be detail-oriented? Are you going to give enough effort? So sometimes it's not so much that you spelled out December in one area and put 12th in the other. It's, did you pay attention? Are you going to care when it gets to the job? So remember, it's a reflection of you. The interviewer doesn't see, or the recruiter or the hiring manager doesn't see a lot of you. This is like your one-page representation. So make it good.
Okay. And then following that, at the end, always make sure you include any volunteer work or any of your academic projects, any outside curricular activities, realizing that you guys might not have a lot of job experience, so this is the opportunity and the time that you really want to leverage that to really showcase who you are and what you can do. So definitely do not leave that stuff off if it can help you in your job. Okay, so of course, as Marcela was kind of leading into also, proofread. Always proofread your resume. Make sure that it does sound right. Make sure that your grammar is correct. You know, like I said, if you've got periods at the end of some, make sure it's on all of them. Otherwise, remove all of them. Make sure that everything is spelled correctly, because believe it or not, a recruiter can pass you right through to a manager, and a manager will look at that and say, he's got too many errors, and boom, gone, done, won't even look at it. Okay, it doesn't matter how great you are. They won't look at it if you have too many errors on your resume. Okay, get someone to look at it for you. Make sure it makes sense, it reads correct, okay? Use workshops. There's a lot of resume workshops, a lot of tools and resources here on campus. You know, ask anybody to take a look at those and help you with that.
And even if you think you have the most perfect resume, get a different set of eyes on it. I do that for my resume. I did it when I applied for Cerritos. I did it when I applied for previous jobs. It's always good to get different opinions on your resume.
Yes. And also think about, again, too, when you are sharing your resume, let them know what job you are actually going after, because that will make a difference, too. So if you're going after a position that might be in sales and possibly one in marketing, you might have two different versions of a resume. So keep that in mind also, because you want to tailor it to that. Okay, moving along here. Headshot photos and pictures. Has anyone seen that as an option to add to a resume?
I have seen it in a resume.
Is that something you would do, like just thinking of doing? Okay. You what?
I was an actor, yeah.
Yes, if you're an actor,
Good answer.
absolutely. Talent agencies, yep, absolutely. Anything else? No. Do not do it. I was a little surprised when I actually recently went into Word and decided to do a search for a resume template, and all these templates they were showing up were really fancy, nice, creative looking templates, and they all had an option for a photo. I'm like, no, don't do it. They don't need to see what your face looks like. They don't need to see how pretty and perfect and great you are, you know, visually. We want them to focus on your skills, right, and your experience. They'll get to see who you are when they bring you in for an interview. So definitely leave those off if you come across those resume templates. Okay. Moving on as well with your formats. I kind of skipped to that down, I think, below. But have printed copies available with you when you do actually go in for an interview. So when you have those nice formats, you can actually have a nicer little cleaner format, but when you are actually uploading resumes into a system, a lot of times today they have a parsing feature, so they're going to pull and extract your information, some of your education, maybe the college you went to, maybe your job titles, your contact information. If your resume is not a basic format, it might not capture all that information, okay? So you'll have to go in and enter it all yourself. But try to keep it simple for the most part for your uploads. If you want to do a cleaner, fun, a little bit more creative style, you can save that for your professional handout when you go in for your interview and hand it to them.
Yeah, and just one quick comment, you know, when I interviewed people, we always had their resume digitally. But to have a paper copy, it's just a different medium. The more you can do to get your name in front of that hiring manager, the people interviewing you, the better. So I would always suggest bring a few copies of your resume printed out for interviews. If you don't need it, keep it in a folder, but I would always offer it up. It's just another way to get your name in front of that person. And sometimes we would forget to print resumes for people, or they would parse out and they would look really weird. So it doesn't hurt to have a nicely printed copy of your resume.
Okay. 2 pages, you really don't need 2 pages on your resume, okay? Especially right now getting started, try to keep it to 1 page. If it starts expanding, 2 pages could be okay if you really do have a lot of relevant experience. Do not ever go more than 2 pages. Start looking at what you can slim down, how can you rephrase something, make it simpler words. Remember, you can always talk to things. In an interview, you can explain and expand. So try to keep it simple and to 1 page if possible. Again, going back to that, you got about 20, 30 seconds, no more than 2 minutes, right, for looking at that resume. A cover letter. Do we need cover letters? Should you do a cover letter?
Some companies require them.
Some companies do.
The state require them.
Yep. So if a company does require, absolutely. But I'll tell you from my own personal experience, I never read them. Never read them, right? I think the only time I really did was if I was doing more of an internship or something where I knew the person really didn't have a lot of experience, I might have actually taken a moment to actually read the cover letters to see why they're a fit. But for the most part, as you go up in your career, I never really looked at them. So unless they ask for it and you really feel a need for it, I wouldn't waste your time writing cover letters. Okay, and then the last thing we have is name your resume smartly. So when you're saving your resume, put a name in it that represents you. Put the date. If it's for a marketing role or a different position, make sure you put that in there. But the most important thing is make sure you have your name. So it could be, R. Maurer, resume 2019. The reason being is when the recruiters go in and they see it and that you applied, we can see that this is the most recent resume. If we print it, if we save it, we know whose resume it is right off the bat by looking in our files.
And one quick comment, we had talked briefly about the email address that you put on your resume when you were talking about contact information. I remember, this was probably 5-10 years ago, I was reviewing a friend's resume. Her resume looked great. Her email address was something like sweetturtle22@yahoo.com. How do you think that's going to look to a professional interviewer, right? So create an appropriate email address. You can have a personal email address that you like, that's maybe kind of fun. Create a professional email address. Use your name, use numbers, but sweetturtle22 shouldn't be the email address that goes on your professional resume. So think about what your email address is as well.
Kind of on that note too, you can go ahead. Might be wise to have a separate email address just for your job search if you are actually applying to a number of positions to make sure that all of your resumes and everything are coming in. Make sure that they're coming into one email box, not getting messed up and lost in the shuffle of a lot of junk mail. Yeah. So another reason, if you don't already have like a good clean email address, that's another reason to go ahead and do that.
All right, so our next section is job search. So now you have a wonderfully written resume, thanks to Renae's tips. We're gonna go look for a job. So who can tell me, maybe we'll get just a couple of thoughts, how do you go about looking for a job? You've graduated from college, you're ready for your first professional job, what do you do? Say it a little bit louder. LinkedIn, okay, you could use LinkedIn. What else? What? Say it again.
Career Builder.
Oh, okay, you can go to Career Builder, good, another online source. Any other thoughts? How do you look for your first job out of college?
Newspaper ads.
Okay, newspaper ads, postings.
Job fair.
Okay, a job fair, good. Okay, so great ideas. So part of my goal with this job search is to tell you beyond online. So we're gonna talk a little bit about online job search, but what else can you do beyond going online for your job search? So the first thing that you wanna start out with is what do you wanna do and where do you wanna be located? So being able to answer those 2 questions will help you. Who knows right now what they wanna do after they graduate from college? All right, I probably didn't either at this stage, and that's okay. Who knows, or maybe can take a good guess where you want to be located for your first job after college? All right, a little bit more. So as you progress in your college career, or your college education, you'll get more insight to that. What classes do you like? What classes don't you like? That'll help guide you to what type of job you want or what field you want. So knowing what you want to do and where you want to be located, that'll help you hone in on your job. So online job search, I'm going to show you in the next slide some common job sites that are used. There are a lot of them out there. Who has heard of LinkedIn? I know we had one student mention it, but who's heard of LinkedIn? Okay, most of us. Who has a LinkedIn profile? A few people. Okay, good. So LinkedIn is the largest online professional networking site. You can create a profile. My advice is remember to keep it professional. It's not Facebook, it's LinkedIn. So keep it professional. And it's a great networking where you can connect with other people in that industry at different companies. So we'll talk about that a little bit more on the next slide. Company websites. So let's say that you really want to work for Disney, right? We really want to work for Disney. They're right here. They're not that far away. Or you really want to work for Google, or you really want to work for Nike. Go directly to their corporate website. Sometimes jobs post on companies' websites first before they go out to the world. So if you're targeting a company, go to their site first. Don't feel like you have to go to all these other sites. Target that company. That can be a great start.
Can I pause there?
Sure.
One thing to keep in mind too, something that I've recently have fallen into with a recent client of mine, is some websites out there are scamming people. So basically what happens is we had a candidate who reached out to us and said, we want to know the status of my application. Look in the system. They're not in the system. Really, what position did you apply for? They tell us the position. We don't have that position open. She sends us the link where she saw it from. It was some random site, no idea where it was. This position hadn't been opened in probably a year and a half. She submitted her application and her information. I did a test with some fake information, but it's like all her information basically went into a black hole. And here she is sitting there wondering like, oh, why haven't I gotten a call back? So my recommendation is even when you do see job postings on some random site that you never heard of, like this was called like Green Jobs Bridge something, I don't know, something bizarre. But if it's something that's not a familiar site like a career builder, Snagit Jobs, Indeed, Simply Hired, these common names, definitely go back to that company website and see if the job is posted.
That's a good point.
Okay, so make sure it's a legit job posting.
Yeah, that's a great point, yeah. All right, thank you. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about networking. So going beyond online. So when you think about networking, who can you talk to potentially that might have a job for you or might be able to tell someone else that has potentially an opportunity for you? Any ideas? I'll give you a hint. There's a good list up here. Yeah, so you're reading this, good. So get creative. Your family members, your friends, the person you see across the street, your soccer coach, maybe someone at your church or your synagogue. They may not work in your field, but they may know someone who works in your field. They may have some connections that you don't even know about. It doesn't hurt to say, hey, I just graduated from college. I'm looking for a marketing job. Will you keep me in mind? If you have friends out there, people that you know, usually they want to help you. My first job out of college, I worked for a medical device company. And my mom, who's a special education teacher, has nothing to do with business. She's a special ed teacher. She showed my resume to her friend, and her friend's daughter worked in HR. That is how I got my first job. My mom's friend's daughter got me an interview at this company. I worked at the company for 8 years. It was my first job out of college. Would I have ever guessed that my mom would have gotten me a job in business? Never. She's just not in the business world. But it's people that know people that know people. So think beyond online. Think about who you know. Don't be afraid, to share that you're looking for a job. It can be a short discussion. Like someone mentioned, attend job fairs and events. Companies will hold them. Disney holds them. Make sure you have your resume. And when you go to a job fair and event, make it a goal. I'm going to talk to one new person. I'm going to talk to 3 new people. Have a goal for yourself. If you're like most people, it can be a little hard to get out there and promote yourself. And then the last point is, there is temporary work, there are internships. Sometimes that can lead to a job. Maybe that's not your first avenue, but that could be kind of a plan B if needed to do an internship, to do temporary work. Sometimes those turn into regular full-time opportunities. And then this, Renae and I pulled, we just wanted to show you, these were some of the top search engines in looking for jobs. Hopefully you can see them. As I did research, these were the common ones. These were probably the most common ones that we saw. They're not in any order, they're just kind of the more common ones used in the United States. But you can see a lot of the jobs that you mentioned are up there.
So communicating with recruiters is really important. So we wanted to just take a few minutes and talk about that. Part of my job has been managing and overseeing recruiters. So a lot of times I did hear a lot of feedback. We hear complaints, issues, all of the successes and everything. So really want to share some of our learnings from that. So basically one of the most important things to remember is always return a recruiter's call and emails within a timely manner. Okay, it doesn't have to be immediate, right? But make sure you do it within like 24 hours or so, because honestly, a recruiter has selected so many candidates to talk to. And if they don't hear back from you, they're moving on. They're not gonna wait too long, okay? Understand that sometimes you're on vacation, you're out of town. Maybe you can't get back to them right away, but definitely get back to them because you never know where they're at in the process. Maybe by the time you've already gotten back from your vacation, it's a week and a half later, call them, email them, say, I'm so sorry, I was out of town, this is the first opportunity I've had to get back to you. Where are you at in the process? Am I still an option to continue? If they haven't moved on too far and they can insert you back into the process, they will, if you're a good, strong candidate. But don't just totally ignore them, okay? Be honest about your job search status. They're always gonna kind of ask you, where are you at in your status? What are you doing? Are you actively looking? Do you have multiple interviews already lined up? Chances are, if you applied, they know you're looking for a job, okay? So just be upfront with them and let them know. They wanna know where do you fit in the timeline and what their timeline is for their company and business. So stay on top of that with them and let them know.
And sometimes, even saying, gosh, I really want to work for this company, but my goal is to get a full-time job. I am applying elsewhere. Kind of lights a little fire under them to let's get going with this person. If you're a strong candidate, they don't want to lose you. So, be thoughtful in how you say that, but it's okay to share that you're applying elsewhere. They probably would guess that anyways.
Absolutely. Follow up with recruiters regarding a status or a thank you. But don't overload them. So we always want to know, where are we at in the process? Should I send them a thank you afterwards? Absolutely, right? So you do want to stay top of mind with them. Don't ever think that, oh, they'll get back to me whenever. Give them about a good week to follow up on a status, but you should always email them promptly after you've actually spoken with them. Thanks for taking the time to meet with me or to talk with me on the phone. I had a great conversation. I'm excited about the job opportunity. I can't wait to hear back from you. If you don't hear anything back from them from a week, email them, call them, hey, I'm just curious on where I am in the process. Keep in mind, a lot of recruiters can have as little as maybe 4 or 5 jobs that they're working on to 20 jobs, okay? And they may have hundreds of candidates that they're weeding through. So you wanna stay on top of mind for them and stay in touch.
So I have a good friend who's a recruiter. She works for an insurance company, and she's had, I think at one time, up to 30 jobs that she was recruiting for. 30 jobs. So you have to think about that. 30 jobs, maybe she interviews 5 candidates for each job. That's 150 people that she's talking to. So unfortunately, she's probably not gonna remember me or you, even if she's talked to us. That's why the follow-up, your name, the position you interviewed for, just wanted to check in, just wanted to say thank you, very important. Remember guys, recruiters are people, they forget, they have lots of different priorities. Even though it's super important to you, they have 29 other jobs to think about or other things that they manage as well. So it never hurts to stay top of mind, like Renae mentioned.
But don't overload them, right? So unless they tell you to email me or call me back the next day or in 2 days, don't do that, right? If you end up overloading them and constantly calling and emailing back every other day or every day, you're gonna become annoying.
So
and
you think like
persistent.
maybe a thank you?
A thank you right after, give it a few days, about a week, follow up, and then if they end up saying, or ask them, how soon can I follow up with you? Otherwise, give it another 4 or 5 days, right? Just don't do every day to every other day.
Yeah.
And if they don't pick up and respond to you, don't keep calling every day, like every few hours either, hoping they'll pick up. That ends up becoming a little bit cumbersome for them, and
Might
you
get
might
you on the
burn
no
you.
thank you list, right?
Yeah, exactly. Okay, if you end up getting a better job offer, should you tell them? Yeah, absolutely. Especially if you want this job too. That goes back to what Marcela said. It kind of burns a little bit under them, lights a fire, kind of gets them moving. Every company has different timelines on when they're going to hire and when they're going to be able to move forward. Some can do it really quick, others not so quick. There might be more levels and layers they have to go through to get approvals. But if they really want you and you have another offer on the table, it might get them to move a little bit faster. And if they can't move fast, then at least you did the due diligence, you gave them that opportunity, you can then move forward with the other offer. Okay, but always let them know, don't just turn away and not even give them that chance. Okay? Never, never, ever no show on a first day if you ended up accepting a job. That is the worst thing you can do for yourself, your reputation. You are blackballed, basically. And that is a thing that happens. People end up accepting a job, they give 2 weeks notice, you're going through background checks and clearance and waiting for your start date. In that 2-week time, all of a sudden you get another job offer. You decide to take it, but you don't inform the other company. Awful. Don't ever, ever, ever do that. Because I've actually had time where someone then turned around like a year or two later, came back, applied, we're like, nope, you didn't show up before. We're not going to take a chance on you again. You wasted a lot of people's time getting your stuff set up, getting clearances, training, orientation, coordination, everything, and now we've also lost an additional 2 weeks on getting somebody else on board. So don't ever do that.
And people within industries talk. So you may think,
Yes.
well, I will never want to work at this company again. Okay, but that person might be friends with the person at another company who's friends with another company, and people can talk. So just the professional thing to do is to at least notify them.
Yeah.
Thank you, but no thank you.
Yeah, just there's nothing wrong with giving them a call and saying, hey, I'm really sorry, but better offer came along. I have to take this. I want to take this. It's a better deal for me. Whatever the case may be, let them know. Okay, and then lastly, be patient. Okay, like I said, recruiters do have a lot going on, so I always say be proactive, stay in touch with them, but be patient also. And I know that's hard because you want your job, you want to hear back, want to know what's going on with it, but give them a little bit of time. Okay? Okay, recruiters' tips. So this one, actually, I do have a good friend still in recruiting, and I reached out to her and I said, you're recruiting every single day, all levels of positions. What are some things that you would say to a college grad, recent, going on their job interviews for the first time? These are her tips. Make sure to provide your most recent resume and be honest about your experience, education, and degree. If you lie on any of that, it will come out, and you could risk having your offer rescinded, okay? And that means that if you say you graduated and you didn't graduate, you might be short one credit, one class, whatever. Just say you're short. You're almost there. You have one more class to do. Just tell them and be honest with that. Don't tell them that you graduated. It will come out and you could lose your job offer.
And let me tell you, from an HR manager, it is very, very painful because you interview this great person, you make them an offer, then you start doing their background check, and if there is a dishonesty issue, you can rescind, which means take away the offer based on the honesty issue. So even if the job doesn't require a college degree, let's say the job did not require a college degree, but you stated on your application that you have a college degree, the offer can be removed from you because you were dishonest, because you lied. So don't lie, be honest. Especially bigger companies will put time and money into doing a background check because we want to make sure that we're doing our due diligence, hiring good people. And also, if there's ever any issues with employees, doing a good background check gives a company a little bit of a defense, like, wow, well, we really, researched this person and they seemed okay. So I've had to have several of those discussions with people, and it's just painful, and you can see the pain in the person, you feel the pain, but you need to be honest. You need to be truthful in your resume. If you're not sure about something, you're like, I don't know, should I put this, should I do that? Get advice from people, ask. But if it's something pretty black and white, like you have one class and you haven't yet graduated from college, you need to put that. I am almost done, I expect my degree on this date, but I have one class left. That's fine. Don't say you have your degree if you don't.
Right. When asked questions, answer the question. Right? Don't just start talking and rambling and go off on a tangent. Usually recruiters only have a certain amount of time to meet with you. So answer the question to the best of your ability. If you don't know how to respond, ask them to rephrase the question. Or tell them you don't know how to answer that, but don't ramble on, right? Make sure though that you are brief, and when you're done talking, just wait patiently, because many times they're going to be taking notes, they're writing down things, and it's okay to have that silent gap for a little while, which that sometimes seems hard too. It feels like I got to keep talking and fill the space till they ask another question. Just be patient and wait until they ask the next question.
And when I was doing interviews, I would always tell the candidate, I'm jotting down notes, so it might take me a few seconds after you're done answering to finish writing down the thoughts. So be patient. Silence is okay. That interviewer needs to usually jot down what you've said so they don't forget. So just give them time. Silence is okay.
Yeah. And on that flip side too, it's okay to think about your answer too before you do respond. Don't feel like you have to have an answer right off the bat. So just tell them, give me 1 second here, and then respond when you're ready. Okay. Ask about the next steps in the process, right? They actually like to hear that you are interested in the next spot or the next steps, because that shows that you're interested in the job and the company. So they will be more than happy to tell you what to expect and what's next. Write that down, right? Make sure you know what's next so you know for future when you walk out the door what you can expect. Okay? Be as personable, energetic, and interested as possible. It's nothing worse than having somebody come in, sit down, and kind of slump in their chair, look around, and not have any interest whatsoever, or feel like they have a right to be there, or are expecting to get hired. You are deciding on whether or not you want this job. They are deciding whether you're fit for the job as well. It's a two-way street. So show them who you are, be personable, be excited, be energetic, show them that you want the job, right? Let that come through. And finally, first impressions are key. And the one thing I think we always tend to forget is phone interviews are also a first impression. Okay, so I know sometimes phone interviews can catch us off guard. Sometimes a recruiter might call, you answer. You're not ready to do a phone interview. Maybe you're out running errands. Maybe you are in between classes. Tell them this is not a good time and schedule a time that is good for you. Because your phone interview with a recruiter can make it or break it for you. That is a good first impression. Okay, so make sure that you are prepared, you're in a good environment, a place where you can think, a place that you can hear them on the phone, not in a busy, loud environment where you can't hear. And make sure that you have your questions prepared, things that you want to ask or know about, and your responses ready to go.
And usually for a phone screening, I think most of the jobs we worked on, the first step was almost always a phone screening. Yep. They're wanting to get a quick check. Like, is this person okay or not okay? I mean, they're really wanting to get a quick check to either say come in person for an interview or don't come in person for an interview. So they're important. How many of you here only have a cell phone? Like you don't have a landline, only have a cell phone? Okay, probably about half. So if you're doing a phone screen, what is very important to think about with only having a cell phone? I only have a cell phone, I don't have a landline. So what's one thing you'd have to think about? Battery, good. You want to make sure you're charged enough. And what's the other thing? Signal reception, absolutely. So in your house, if you don't get a good reception on your phone and you don't have a landline, go somewhere where you have a good reception, even if you have to sit in your car somewhere. Just think about that, because you don't want to be playing, do you hear me, do you hear me? Not with a recruiter. They won't do that for very long. So just logistics to think about, having good battery life, having good reception if your cell phone's gonna be your primary method of communicating. All right, our last section is some interview tips for you. Renae and I were talking that we could probably do a whole session on interviewing, but we don't have that time, so we're gonna give you some outlines. Some of this we've already talked about. Make sure you know your company. Research your company. Before I interviewed at Cerritos College, I did a lot of research. I read their website, I read their mission, I tried to memorize some things, I looked at data, I looked at statistics. Whatever I could arm myself with was important. Is it okay to jot down some notes about the company and bring that to you in the interview? What do you think? Yeah, it's fine. I have a black folder that I would always bring. It would have my notes. And you can open that and glance at it if you need to during your interview. There's nothing that says you can't bring notes, typically, unless it's some special process. Ask for an agenda when you're going in for an interview, if possible. When I interviewed at Black & Decker, I think I interviewed with like 5 different people from all different parts of the business, and it was really helpful to know who I was interviewing with. Was this person from sales? Is this person from operations? Is this person from finance? So ask for an agenda if possible.
Marcela, really quick.
Yeah.
Does anyone know why that might be helpful or beneficial to ask for an agenda and know who you're interviewing with? Yes.
There's so many people probably interviewing at the same time.
A lot of people interviewing at the same time, yep. Anything else? Yes.
To know who you're selling yourself to and what information to give out.
Exactly, yes. So to know who and what they do, so you know how to present yourself. So there are a lot of people, you might be meeting with different managers from different departments, you might be meeting with some potential team members, but each person, you're gonna be sharing different parts of yourself and what your work history might be like or your experience. So to be able to prepare for that can be very helpful. Right? Okay.
All right, so who is nervous before they have to go in for an interview? Who feels nervous? Okay, so I think the statistic is like 99.9% of people are nervous before interviews. It's a natural thing to be nervous. When you're thinking about logistics, where do you need to be? What time do you need to be there? Some companies, the address is easy to find, but then they have 27 different buildings. What building do you go to for larger companies? Things like that are important. You're already gonna be nervous. You're more apt to make mistakes. So give yourself plenty of time. If you get there early, you can sit in your car. If there's a Starbucks not too far, you can go to Starbucks. Please, if you go to Starbucks, don't drink too much coffee because then you're just gonna be shaking. So just be wise in what you do. Maybe buy a bottled water, right? But get there early. And if it is a bigger location, ask what building and ask where you should park. The recruiter is normally happy to help you with that information because they don't want you to be late either. People took out time of their schedule to talk with you. So know your logistics, prepare questions to ask. At the very end of the interview, typically the hiring manager or the interviewer will say, do you have any questions for me? Should your answer be no, I have absolutely no questions? Probably not. Even if you don't really have any questions, ask a question or two. It shows that you're interested. Some common questions you can ask: what's a typical day like in this position? Where do you see this company in 3 years and 5 years? And then, like Renae mentioned, what are the next steps in the interview process? All good questions to ask. Yes.
I have another one that I always like too. What is your management style?
Well, that's a good
Because
one.
that might actually impact how you work. Are you someone who needs a lot of hands-on? Are you someone who likes to work independently? They might actually flip that around on you as well, saying what kind of worker are you? Are you very independent? Are you more team-oriented? And it could be both. But sometimes I have found I really like to know what management style. Are they a micromanager or are they very hands-off? I don't need someone breathing over my shoulder when I work, right? But I do want someone who's going to be there and available when I have questions and need help. So I actually really like that question too from candidates.
Yeah, that's a great point. All right, look up sample interview questions and prepare. We included some on the bottom half of your handout. These are some common sample questions for your first job out of college. You can Google questions and you will get a whole list. Practice those. The last one is practice and practice some more. Should you practice just by thinking about the answers in your head? Why is just thinking about the answers in your head maybe not the best strategy? You're like, I know what I'm going to say. I got it down. Forget when you're nervous. It sounds good in your head, but maybe not when it actually comes out. There's a lot of stuff that goes on in your head. Yeah. So my advice to you is practice out loud. Practice out loud. When I was in college, I remember my roommate, who was a child development major, had nothing to do with business. I printed out the questions. She sat and interviewed me for like 20 minutes. And it was weird. Like, I started giggling. I just thought things were funny when they weren't funny at all. She's like, what are you doing? I'm like, I don't know. I'm nervous. I guess this is what I do when I'm nervous. So practice with someone, a friend, a family member. Practice in front of the mirror. Videotape yourself. I know it's weird seeing yourself, but you have to do it out loud. When you're talking to that person who's interviewing you, you're doing it out loud. They can't read your mind, right? So practice. You're going to get better. And give yourself time. Don't practice just the day before your interview. Practice as soon as you know the interview is coming up. All right, last slide before we get to some question and answer. Dress the part. So we're going to take a minute just for a quick activity. I want you to pretend that you have your first big interview out of college. Let's say it's with the employer that you wanted. You're just so excited. This would be the perfect job, the perfect company, and now you need to pick out what to wear. But the problem is you don't have a lot of money. You don't have a lot of money to go out and buy a nice new fancy outfit or suit to wear. So I want you to take just a minute, talk to your neighbor, and brainstorm on what you could do if you don't have a lot of money, but you need to be able to buy professional attire for this awesome interview. So take just a minute, talk to each other. Who can raise their hand and tell us one idea that you came up with the people that you talked with? Yes? Go to Goodwill. Great idea. Goodwill. Sometimes people barely wear their stuff, right? And they donate it to Goodwill. Thank you. How much money do you have? I don't know. Let's say you have $50. Go to Ross. Okay, good. A discount store. Great idea. What else? Borrow something. I think I borrowed a lot of my mom's stuff when I was interviewing. Great. Borrow something. What else? Any other thoughts? Yes? Borrow money. Okay, so maybe ask someone if you can borrow money for this purpose. Sometimes for that purpose, people will be willing to let you borrow money. Okay, great. So discount stores, borrowing clothes from people, borrowing money, all great ideas. The other thing I would suggest is give yourself time. If you know that you're graduating from college and you're going to have to do interviews, start looking out there. Go to the Goodwill if you can. Go to stores, see when they have sales. You can get things cheaper, hopefully. Don't wait until the last minute, because then you're kind of stuck and you might just have to buy things. Ask people if you can borrow certain parts of their outfits if you need to. When I was interviewing, I had a basic outfit. I think I had black pants, kind of like this, black pants, a blazer, and different blouses that I would wear, and nice shoes. And that's it. And I just rotated them. I did not have a lot of money. Half of it was my mom's. Half of it was probably from like JCPenney or something. So get creative, but you do need to have appropriate attire. So professional business attire, as we say up here, for men, suits, or at minimum, a shirt and tie. Men to invest in a nice suit. It does not have to be expensive, but it should look professional. That is probably worthwhile for your interviewing. I think even places like Kohl's sell suits. You can get it for a little bit cheaper, or like the other options we talked about. Learn about the culture and environment. I have a friend who works in the creative industry, and a lot of the companies that he applies for, they're wearing shorts and flip-flops. So he's not going to wear a fancy suit, but he is going to wear a button-down shirt and slacks to interview. And then if he ever gets hired, then he can go to the shorts and flip-flops, right? So know your environment. You can ask the recruiter, how should I dress? They're usually willing to share with you. Your clothing should fit well. So make sure you try it on, make sure it's comfortable, make sure it's clean, iron it if you can, so it should look clean and well put together. And then probably having like bright colors, bright patterns, again, probably not something you want to experiment with in an interview. Right. If the company's a big creative company, you know, there are exceptions, but typically, you know, you want to dress a little bit more conservatively.
I have one more thing to add. In addition to the dress, does anyone know or realize there's something missing that you should also do to prepare? Hygiene, yeah, hair. please, please, please make sure you have good hygiene before you go into an interview. Shower, comb your hair, brush your teeth, whatever, but there's really nothing worse than sitting in an interview and not having good hygiene, you know.
Yeah.
They will know, and sometimes you're sitting in small rooms, and you might be nervous, maybe one of your nervous things are you get a little hot, sweaty anyways, so don't add to that, right? So make sure you come in all clean, freshly showered, all of that, because it will show, trust me.
Yeah, and we've seen a lot. This is why we tell you this. So hopefully
Yes.
it's common sense for most of you, but a great
It's
point. And then another thing that I always did is I always brought myself a bottle of water when I was interviewing, because you don't always get that. And especially if you have a long interview, like if you're interviewing with several people, gosh.
And a snack.
And a snack, put a granola bar in your pocket or your purse. I had interviews where they would like interview me through lunch and I would not get to eat. So I'd like have to go to the bathroom, eat my granola bar. I mean, it was kind of crazy.
Right.
And once I got hired, I was like, let me make a little process suggestion improvement here. If you're gonna have someone interview from 10 to 2, you need to feed them, right? But it happens sometimes. Sometimes recruiters forget. So just be prepared. A water and a granola bar is probably not a bad idea to just bring with you, especially if you have a longer interview. The last section we've kind of already talked about, follow-up, always send a thank you. What do you think is one of the most common ways to send a thank you nowadays after you've had an interview? How do you send it? You email it. Can you still do a card? Sure, it just takes longer. So an email is nice, short and sweet. Here's my name, here's the job position. Thank you for interviewing me. This is why I think I'd be the best candidate. I'm excited for next steps, your name, and always include your phone number. They can't see your phone number enough because then it's easy access. So always send a follow-up and a thank you.
And that is important also because if you do happen to be a runner-up or it's between you and one other candidate and they're really on the fence with 2 great people, one person sent a thank you, the other one didn't, guess who's gonna get the job? Guaranteed. I had several hiring managers that based decisions on that, so keep that in mind. It never hurts to send one.
Yeah, it's interesting because working in HR, we work with the hiring managers, the people that actually are hiring, that are getting the people on their team, and they are really picky about stuff sometimes. Like, oh, the person didn't send a thank you, they're out. And we're like, really? But it can make a big impact. So not a lot of effort on your part, but can reap good rewards.
Right.
All right, so we have about 10 minutes left for question and answer. We're happy to share our insight. We've probably seen a little bit of everything in our HR experience, so we'll open it up for questions. Okay, so good question. If you don't have any job experience, what do you put? Any thoughts or?
Think about any other kind of activities you have done, especially within school. Look at your project work and list a lot of that. Especially depending on the job you're going for. A lot of times we know that maybe it's an entry-level position. We're looking for someone with maybe a year, 2 years, or no experience, recent grads. We don't expect you to have a lot of job experience that's relevant or at all. So we'll ask you questions about what kind of coursework have you done that might apply? What kind of projects or teams have you worked in? What came out of those projects? Any other extracurricular activity you might have? Did you volunteer? Did you help out? Any organizations? Missing anything?
Yeah, I think that's it. I mean, and if you haven't worked formally, think of anything volunteer that you've done. Anything at all. And I would suggest for those of you that don't work, that's a great privilege to be able to have during college, do at least some volunteer work. Or even slight part-time work, as having something will help. So even at your school, like maybe you volunteer for Business Week. Think about how great that would look. Business Week at Cerritos College, volunteer. Maybe you volunteered handing out flyers or putting up posters, but it's going to show that you were involved. So anything else that you can add would be helpful to kind of complement your resume. Yeah, good question. So you have offers from these companies, good companies, but you can't right now because you're focused on school. Okay. Right, you can't take full-time right now. Well, first of all, congratulations on being offered jobs. You've gotten through probably the hardest hurdle. So what I would say is politely say, I can't right now, but gosh, I would love to after I'm done with college. They probably can't hold the job for you. That's too far down the road. But if you handle it professionally and with respect, the chances that they'll look at you again when you're done with college go way up. So that's what I would suggest. Depending on how they approached you is how I would respond. Like if it was a conversation, I'd talk to them back. If they emailed you, I'd email them back. but just as long as you're professional and polite. And I would mention, I'm focusing on my college studies. I would love to, though, after I'm done with college, which should be in whatever year, you think you're done. Any thoughts on that? or-
I was going to say exactly what you said.
Yeah.
Yeah, as long as you tell them that you're finishing school, that's your priority right now, what your expected graduation date is. If there's an opportunity after that, you would love to come work for them, and reach out to them at that time if that's okay.
Yeah, that's great. You're building connections. And if you guys just heard that, they want her because of her fit, right? Her personality, probably along with skills and other things that she has. So that's a
Yeah.
big part. All right, good question. All right, we'll take one or two more questions.
Back here.
So let me repeat the question. If you have 2 job offers, maybe one is better than the other, but the company you really want to work for, like the pay isn't as good, you're saying, would you try to negotiate? I would say absolutely yes.
Absolutely.
Being in the HR background, negotiation happens all the time. All the time. Sometimes it's pretty set, depending on what job you're applying for. If it's a union structure, if it's a strict pay scale, they might be like, this is it. In the world we lived in, you could negotiate almost anything. We might have to say no or not that much, but yeah, you could say, wow, thank you so much. I'm really excited to work here, but looking at my pay and just my budget, this is more my pay range. I do have another offer in this pay range. Is this something you could consider? Do it professionally, do it kindly, but absolutely you can do it. And you have to know, like, what are you willing to walk away from? Are you going to go for the money, or are you going to go for the better company if the company that you think is better says no?
Right.
So you have to kind of know that in the back of your head. But can you negotiate? Absolutely. Just do it professionally and kindly. And they might be willing to bring up your salary a little bit.
Right.
Yeah. Good question.
Yes.
With benefits, bigger companies typically don't have a ton of
Wiggle room.
flexibility with benefits. Like, it is what it is with your benefits, like medical, dental. So that's a little tougher. But pay, vacation
Vacation.
time, those
Yeah.
are negotiable.
Yeah,
Don't tell
Yeah.
anyone we told you no.
yeah. I learned late, so
Yeah.
unfortunately dropped
Yeah,
a
it's
week.
very negotiable, yeah.
But at the end of the day, you have nothing to lose by negotiating that with the recruiter or the managers. I mean, worst they can say is no, and then you have a decision to make.
Yeah. When I started before Cerritos College, my job before then, I went into the job saying, I need 3 weeks of vacation. And I said it very nicely, but most companies start you at 2 weeks, and I had a good work history before then, and that was just my thing. I wasn't gonna go unless I had at least 3 weeks of vacation, and they ended up giving me 3 weeks of vacation. But I did it professionally, I did it kindly, I didn't do it as a demand, even though in my head I knew it was a demand. I did it as kind of like I would really appreciate this, and it's really, 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 really important to me, and it worked, And I also had history where I currently had 3 weeks of vacation where I was coming from, which I think I showed them in my paperwork. So just kind of know what you want and do it respectfully. Never do it in a demanding, I'm gonna get this kind of way, because they might just open the door and say, all right, no thank you. So. All right, well, thank you guys very much. We appreciate your time, and we'll be up here if you have any other questions.